This tiny book of Hours, measuring just over 10 by 6 centimetres, is one of 4 diminutive devotional manuscripts made for or commissioned by Queen Claude of France. Claude was born in 1499, the eldest daughter of Anne, Duchess of Brittany, and her second royal husband, Louis XII of France. In 1514, Claude married her cousin, the future Francis I, and a year later she became queen. Claude inherited her mother's love of books, as well as her piety and political acumen. The so-called Master of Claude of France produced 2 books of Hours, including this one, for the Queen, as well as 2 prayer books, one of which was destined for her younger sister Renée. The Master of Claude of France was active in the early decades of the 16th century and had learnt his trade in Tours in the entourage of Jean Bordichon, the illuminator of Anne of Brittany's impressive Grands Heures. His work is characterised by Italianate architectural frames, a delicate pastel palette, and detailed compositions on a minute scale. The Italianising motifs in the artist's work, as well as the humanistic script employed by the scribe, point to the broader influence of Italian art spreading through France from the end of the 15th century as a result of continuous French campaigns on the peninsula. The Hachette Hours is the first of the 3 manuscripts made for Claude, and dates from between 1508 and 1512. Claude would have been about 10 at the time, so perhaps this was a precocious commission from the young princess, or perhaps the book was commissioned for her by her book-loving mother, Anne. Certainly, this little book paved the way for Claude's later commissions from the same artist, and it foregrounds many of the themes and motives that appear in those later books. For instance, the Hachette Hours armillary spheres, representing Claude, appear in the later Book of Hours, now in a private collection, along with the motto Non Mudera. Claude inherited this Spanish phrase meaning "she will not change" from her mother, along with the knotted cordeliere, a symbol of Franciscan piety. In the Hachette Hours, the motto and the cordeliere are closely intertwined, looping around many of the border pages. Moreover, the suffrages in the Hachette Hours are almost exactly the same as those in her prayer book, now in the Morgan Library in New York. While some of these saints are not unusual, they are related to Claude's specific devotional interests. St. Louis, St. Anne, and St. Claude were the patron saints of Claude and her parents. Her sister Renée arrived in 1510, so the inclusion of Saint Renée in the Hachette Hours suggests she may already have been born when the manuscript was made. The 2 girls were Anne's only surviving children from multiple pregnancies during both her marriages. St. Anne, blessed with the birth of the Virgin after a long period of infertility, was therefore of additional importance to both Anne and Claude. As we see in the Hachette Hours, St. Anne was often depicted teaching her daughters to read, a reminder perhaps for Claude of learning at her own mother's knee. St. Ursula, dressed like a queen and holding an arrow of her martyrdom, is patron saint of Brittany. Claude would inherit her mother's independent duchy on Anne's death in 1514, and Claude herself strove to keep it from French control. St. Helena, also wearing a crown, holds the true cross which she discovered in Jerusalem. As an empress and mother of an illustrious son, Constantine, the first Christian Roman emperor, Helena provided another model of queenship and motherhood. Along with St. Anne, both Ursula and Helena play a prominent role in Anne of Brittany's Grands Heures. Their inclusion in Claude's book points to the shared devotional and political interests of mother and daughter. Finally, there are the unusual violet wings which appear amongst the armillary spheres in several of the margins. These do not appear in Claude's other books, but they must be a reference to her father, Louis, since the French word for wing, L, is a homophone for the letter L. Turning the pages of this exquisite manuscript, we find the young Claude metaphorically nestled between the symbols of her parents, who had high hopes for their daughter. Books of Hours, however tiny, were not only for personal prayer. They functioned as conveyors of status and expectation. Armed with reminders of her family and full of personal references, the Hachette Hours surely helped set Claude on a path of piety, patronage, and political power.